welcome to the Tea and a Butty podcast. I'm Dominic.
And I'm Erica.
Today we're going to be talking about listed buildings.
But Dominic, what is a listed building?
Well, I'll tell you right now.
No, really, what's a listed building?
Do you want to know? Does anyone know what a listed building is? We'll wait.
Raise your hand.
Raise your hand.
If you know what a listed building. No, we don't have listed buildings in America. I mean, genuinely.
I actually didn't. That's something I didn't do research on. If you have them over here or not. I just did the whole...
Well, we don't call them listed. Okay, well, just explain what...
I mean, surely you have some sort of like preservation...
Protected
protection.
Yeah,
protective status.
Yeah.
But listed buildings in the UK, a listed building, and it can be a listed structure too.
Meaning what? So like...
It can be a signpost, it can be a telephone box, it can be a road sign.
Like Stonehenge, though.
It's
not a building.
Yes, it's not a building, but it's a structure.
Yeah,
you know,
it's a structure that they're not going to knock down anytime soon.
You know, significant interest in it. Yeah. A listed building or a listed structure is one that has been placed on one of the statutory lists maintained by Historic England in England, the Historic Environment Scotland in Scotland, Cadw in Wales, which is spelt CADW, and Northern Ireland Environment Agency in Northern Ireland. So they're responsible for if someone wants to say, "Hey, I live in a building that should be listed."
Yeah.
How do I go about it? And almost anything can be listed. You can go and see, but it's got to meet criteria and everything.
Okay, yeah.
And it's actually not known how many listed buildings there are in the UK because, you know...
What? How can that be possible? Surely there's a list somewhere.
There's a list, but it's only covering one building, and it could be on an estate. You know, a massive estate with small outer buildings and everything like that. So, say like...
Wait, what? I mean, explain that a little more.
You know, you get an estate, right? You know, you get a big house, and, you know, you've got acres of land of it.
Yeah.
There's small outbuildings as well, you know?
Okay.
Which are covered under the list.
So
they're separate buildings.
So, for example, Downton Abbey, let's say, if it's a real place,
and it has a little cottage.
It's just not called Downton Abbey.
It's called Highclere Castle, and I think that is listed. I think that's grade 1 listed.
Okay,
we'll talk about the grades later.
But that's one specific place on a certain amount of land, and there may be like a little
cottage or something,
land keeper's cottage in the back.
Yes,
and that can also be listed.
Yeah,
is that what you mean?
Yeah, that can be,
or it cannot possibly be listed.
It cannot possibly be listed, but it probably is if it's like as old as that or whatever. It was built around the same time.
Yeah,
and you know, it's estimated in England. Historic England estimates there are currently around 500,000 listed buildings in England.
Yeah.
Because people can go, oh, well, it's listed buildings because I can list my building because it's historically...
So, does every listed building or structure or whatever have a blue plaque? I'm
not actually sure. I don't think... I think it can and it can't. I think you can choose whether to...
So that's not just... It's not just the blue plaque places that are listed.
Yeah,
it can be...
The heritage is like... I think you can apply to get a blue plaque put anywhere. Even not on a listed building.
Oh, okay.
You know, like someone of significance lived here, you know. Well, for example, in Baker Street, you know, on that bank, on where the Apple boutique used to be.
Yeah, yeah.
They've got John Lennon and George Harrison MBE worked here. You know, and we took a picture of that.
Yeah.
Because it's quite funny, because it's where there's a bank there now, but it used to be the Apple boutique in the late 60s, and that only lasted like 5 minutes.
Yeah.
And they had to close it down because they were hemorrhaging money and everything. But because those two people are dead, and they were of national interest...
Yeah.
They put a blue plaque there. Oh, that's what
the blue plaque...
It's like national interest. It's like, Sir Isaac Newton lived here between the years of whenever, you know.
And those can only be about somebody that's dead, right?
It's only someone that's dead, yeah.
So, like, let's say Paul McCartney's old house in Liverpool, even though the, what is it? The
National Trust owns it.
Trust owns it. So that means it's listed or not necessarily?
I think it's listed now. Yeah, I think it's grade 2 listed.
It does not have a blue plaque on it because he is still living.
He's still living, yeah.
Okay.
John's...
The blue plaques are sort of more like memorials then.
They're memorials of people of national interest.
Rather
yeah, you
than...
can't just say, "Oh, my dad lived here." You know, like my dad lived here between the years of 1993 to 1999. You know, and he was like, he was my dad. Okay, you know.
But my dad's very important to me. I want a plaque there.
But he's not important to anyone else. Just you. No one else cares about your dad but you.
But yeah, that does shock me that they don't know how many listed buildings there are.
The total number is difficult to monitor because one entry will often cover a number of different buildings. So say, you know, as we were saying, Downton Abbey could have like several, you know,
on the same property,
such as outbuildings on large estates or rows of terraced houses. You know, because
but why
that's
don't they keep track of each individual one then? That doesn't make any sense.
Because
really.
They just can't be bothered. I think that's
but it's like, why make it listed? How do they know not to knock it down then if they don't have track? If they
because someone is keeping track. Oh, that's a listed building over there. You know, that's grade 2 or grade 1 or whatever. Grade 2 star. There's 3. Okay, let's go into what they are. Grade 1 is buildings of exceptional interest. That's like the highest grade you can get.
Yeah.
Grade 2
so
star.
So like Buckingham Palace.
Buckingham Palace. Yeah, Buckingham Palace is one. Yeah. I'll list some examples. Royal Albert Dock of Liverpool is a grade 1.
Really?
Yeah.
Interesting.
They've made that. Blackpool Tower in Blackpool is a grade 1. Pontycillite Aqueduct in North Wales is 1. Tower Bridge in London is 1. The Clifton Suspension Bridge in Bristol is 1. And the York Minster in York.
So probably it has something to do with like architectural
and also built before a certain time.
Okay.
It's like that's
you don't know the specific criteria for it to make it a grade 1.
Well, it's usually like the criteria, age and rarity. The older a building is, the more likely it is to be listed. All buildings erected before 1700 that contain a significant proportion of their original fabric, which is like stonework, interior, whatever, will be listed. It's like, automatically.
I wonder, that would be an interesting, like, maybe it's as a separate podcast. I would like to find out and talk about how many buildings in Britain there actually are from before 1700 because in my head before I traveled to Britain everything was
everything was built before 1700. We all lived in houses that were built during the Middle Ages.
Everything was like Middle Ages, thatched roofing, you know, all of that kind of stuff. And really, obviously, it's
the Renaissance was just something that happened. We didn't bother updating or getting on. It's like, you know, it's like that stereotype about Britain. It's like, oh, everything over there is old.
Yeah.
And it's like, it's older than over here, but yet sometimes.
Yeah, sometimes,
you know?
But not necessarily. I mean, on the East Coast, in the Northeast, you have buildings that are from the same period as
some
Britain,
which you know that's true, you know.
You have quite a lot actually.
And you know, I'd imagine that a lot of Boston is quite old unless they decided to pull it down or whatever, you know. But yeah, in Britain, I mean, we went through World War II. I mean, we went through World War One, but World War II did a lot of damage. You know, in London, the Great Fire of London in the 1600s pretty much wiped everything out because it was made of wood.
Yeah. Yes.
And then they were just like, oh, well, we better start using stone now. And then, boom, that was bombed by a bomb, you know, whatever, you know. And, and you know, but there's still stuff that's quite old there, you know.
I mean, for me, I don't want to say it was. I don't want to say it was disappointing, but
it was disappointing.
Disappointing in a way. Someone who's like me, who's really into history, I thought, all right, Europe, Britain, this is going to be so good.
I want to see castles.
It's going to be so old. Okay, castles. You do have some old castles.
Yeah, so they're grade 1 automatically. The ones that are still, like, Alnwick Castle, I'm sure is grade 1.
Yeah.
The Tower of London, obviously, that's a castle.
So anything before 1700 is grade 1.
Is grade 1, it's going to be listed, Buildings built between 1700 and 1840 are listed. After 1840, more selection is exercised and particularly careful selection is applied after 1945. You're not going to get something that was built in
1980
as listed unless they say, oh, wow, this is quite visually unique.
So maybe like the Gherkin? I'm wondering if the glass building,
buildings less than 30 years old are rarely listed unless they are of outstanding quality and under threat.
Okay.
So
they might list something that's under threat of being demolished for some, to make way for something else. They might go,
outstanding quality could be an aesthetic merit. Like if it's visually unique, if it's shaped like a massive,
like the Shard or the Gherkin.
Shard. Yeah, I imagine they probably got them, that they can't pull them down.
Yeah.
And selectivity, of course, where a large number of buildings of a similar type survive, the policy is to only list the most representative or significant examples. So, if, there was a ton of shards in every city, only the one in London will be listed.
Yeah.
If they built a shard in Birmingham or Liverpool or something like that, it's like the shard in London. They're not going to list them because it's like, we've already got one in London that's listed.
We've already got one of those.
That one's staying. That one can be pulled down whenever you want,
Oh my God.
But yeah, grade 2 star is particularly important buildings of more than special interest.
Like?
So, Battersea Power Station in London.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
The Liverpool Metropolitan Cathedral
particularly important buildings.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. So this is all very subjective, though.
It's subjective, but enough people have gone, oh, yeah.
Yeah, oh, don't take that down.
The Middlesbrough Transporter Bridge in Middlesbrough, which you've seen on the 3rd series of Off We to St. Pet, they took it down and built it in Arizona, kind of like what they did with the London Bridge. That's a Middlesbrough Transporter Bridge. It's like this big, massive structure which carries cars across the river.
Mm.
And it's like, oh, that's pretty cool. It's a pretty cool feat of engineering,
Yeah.
Cleveland Bridge in Bath, Rise Hall in Rise, Yorkshire, and St John's Jerusalem in Sutton-at-Hone in Kent.
So really distinguishing between the grade 1 and grade 2, I mean...
This is grade 2 star, so this is even more important than grade 2.
Okay, but distinguishing doesn't really make any difference, right?
It doesn't, no.
Except for maybe to whoever owns...
The special interest, so yeah.
Maybe it just makes a difference to whoever owns that property. For value purposes, maybe, if they wanted to sell or something.
They wanted to sell, or they wanted, tourism. I think it's like a tourist kind of thing. For example, the Middlesbrough Transporter Bridge. What else has Middlesbrough got? You know?
Oh, poor Middlesbrough.
I mean, Chris Rea. That's the only other tourism. Driving home for Christmas, Chris Rea was from Middlesbrough. That's the only other thing they've got. That and the Transporter Bridge.
A shout out in a Vita St. Pet.
Yeah. Grade 2 buildings. These are buildings that are of special interest, warranting every effort to preserve them.
I wonder why grade 2 star and then grade 2. Why not just grade 2 and then grade 3?
There was a grade 3, but it was abolished in 1970.
Okay.
No one knows why.
Oh my God, I love Britain. They're so ridiculous.
Why have they done that? Oh no. Anyway, grade 2 buildings include Abbey Road Studios in London.
Okay. Yeah.
The Adelphi Hotel in Liverpool. I stayed there. The BT Tower, which was formerly the Post Office Tower in London. You've seen that big tower, it's like...
Yeah.
Bromhill Pool in Ipswich, the Birmingham Back-to-Backs in Birmingham, which
Bromhill Pool, like meaning it.
It's a swimming pool, but it's like, it looks like a fancy Art Deco one, I think.
Oh yeah, huh.
The Birmingham Back-to-Backs, which are row houses, terraced houses, which share a backyard courtyard, which were like Peaky Blinders era.
Yeah.
You know, for poor people who lived in Birmingham at that time. You know, they were built and they shared a courtyard in the back, and kids played out there and then went back into their houses.
Yeah.
It's like those are probably the only ones of those type still around in Birmingham, because everything else was just razed to the ground, you know.
Yeah.
Probably bombed during the war too.
Yeah.
And Surbiton Railway Station in London, which I looked up Surbiton Railway Station, and it looks like it was built in the 1960s.
Oh.
It looks very like 1960s architecture-ish.
Yeah.
Like what they thought, like, oh, the future, you know, the 1950s. I'm not really sure when it was built, but yeah, it's grade 2 for whatever reason.
And these, just to reiterate, these are by no means the only ones that are in each of these categories.
No. These are just examples. Yeah. There's tons of them. There's over 500,000 in England alone.
Yeah.
And then you got Wales. I mean, castles and churches, they have their own sort of like rating system. I think it's grade A, B, and C, but they're sort of the same thing. You know?
Okay, yeah.
Basically, because they were knocking down churches in England in the 60s all the time.
Yeah.
We're just demolishing this church to put up a high rise.
To
put
up a pub.
And people were like, put up a pub. Yeah, they could build a pub there. Yeah, I mean, they could theoretically do whatever, you know.
Yeah.
But yeah, they were knocking down those churches, and they were knocking down stuff, and then Church of England, I guess, formed its own historical society, so we must preserve these churches. They were built in the 1800s, and you know, they're wonderful pieces of architecture and everything, you know. So I guess that's the same sort of thing, you know, and historical England just covers everywhere else, like, you know, the castles and everything.
I mean, Victorian architecture is really absolutely gorgeous. It makes me wonder, though, like, talking about churches, because churches in Britain are seeing such a rapid decline in churchgoers. What are these churches that are listed buildings? What are they going to be? Because a listed
they're
building,
going to be Airbnbs, aren't they?
Well, no, I was going to
at some point.
No, but you haven't mentioned, but you can't alter listed buildings.
No,
can you?
Yeah, I was just going to get to that.
Have you talked about that yet?
Listing is not a preservation order preventing change.
Oh.
It does not freeze a building in time. It's like if you buy that.
Oh, I thought it did.
No. It simply means that listed building consent must be applied for in order to make any changes to that building which might affect its special interest, which means they could write back and say, oh, I want to put a bathroom in Buckingham Palace.
Yeah.
Or I want to put I want to build an extension onto it.
Yeah.
Can we do it? You know, and they might find back, oh yeah, that's fine. Or most of the time they'll probably say, nah, you're not going to do that.
We don't want to affect the way it looks.
Yeah, because people will be able to see that and they'll moan about it, so no.
Yeah.
It's too much, you know? So it's not a preservation order. You can apply for a permit, but it's up to Historic England or, you know, these other organisations whether they'll allow it. You know? Yeah. And most of the time they won't.
Well, a lot of the time, I mean, like with something like a church, for example, though.
Yeah.
It seems like they would have to allow some sort of changes to be made to make it an Airbnb or to make it a pub or you know.
Yeah, well, interior-wise, yeah, because, I mean, Savile Row.
Yeah, I wanted to talk about that.
3 Savile Row, where the Beatles had their Apple headquarters, and that's on a Taylor Row, which is, I think, most of the buildings on that row are listed.
Yeah,
maybe grade 2.
Well, Savile Row is very well known across the world, isn't it? As being like
the epicenter of tailoring.
Yeah,
it's like, oh, my tailor at Savile Row,
being the epitome of
of class and distinction, and oh yes, you know, tailors, and yeah, you know, your suits are all cut there, and
and so for you guys who are unaware, who are not maybe as Beatle crazy as Dominic and I. The Beatles had their Apple headquarters was there on Savile Row, and of course it no longer was Apple then after.
Oh, they moved out of the building in like 1973 or
it's
something.
where they did the rooftop concert.
Their final live performance, which I think is what kind of gave it a grade 2 listing anyway. I think maybe it was covered, because I think it was covered anyway because it's like it was built at the same time as everything else in Savile Row, and so it was given that kind of, it's like a big huge townhouse basically.
Yeah.
I think 3 or 4 floors, maybe 5.
Yeah, I'm not sure because there's a basement too.
There's a basement. That's right. Yeah, that's where their studio was as well. That's where they filmed a lot of Let It Be, and then they had their concert on the roof in 30th of January 1969, which was their final live appearance
at 7 o'clock. 7.
It was actually
7:03
it was actually lunchtime. It was lunchtime. It's like and so they had it up there, and then they split up, and then Apple moved out of there in like 1972 or 73, and it remained kind of derelict. No one went in there for forever.
Yeah.
And I don't know who bought it. Then someone bought it, and then it went to Abercrombie and Fitch, who turned it into an Abercrombie Kids.
Yeah.
And of course, people were like, "Oh, because there was so many people wanting to buy it."
Well, the Taylors
and turn it into some Beatles museum.
Well, no.
As we were...
I don't know. We don't know if anybody besides us wanted to buy it, but Dominic and I don't know if I should divulge this because this is going to give somebody the idea, and if somebody else does this idea, who's not me, I'm going to be really pissed off.
If someone buys it off Abercrombie and Fitch, and doesn't say we had the idea, then we're coming for you.
Yes,
we're coming for you.
Yeah, because we were just like, well, first of all, the Taylors, the other real Taylors on the street. I don't know what word I was looking for there, but they were protesting Abercrombie and Fitch coming because it's just like it's a chain.
It's a chain, yeah.
Yeah.
And there's an association, like a homeowners association. There's a tailors association, which pretty much owns all of Savile Row. And they're just like, oh. And that's why it was derelict for so long, I think, because nobody could buy it, and because I think they didn't even want the Beatles there.
They're individually owned. They're bespoke. They're very like high end places, and then they're gonna tack a freaking Abercrombie and Fitch down the whole corner of the street. It's just like, I could understand them going, no, we don't want tourists in this area, which, I mean, there were already Beatles tourists coming to visit, but
because when we visited there, there's a photo of you, we'll probably put it up on Instagram at some point. The door was like boarded up, and everything was boarded up. It wasn't Abercrombie then.
No,
they hadn't bought it at that time. It was just derelict. And
so Dominic and I were just like, oh, we should somehow try to come up with the money, which obviously, however many millions of pounds they sold it for. I think you can find it on Google if you Google, but we were like, oh, maybe we could do a Kickstarter, a GoFundMe or something like that, raise the money. We really just thought this would be the absolute perfect place for a Beatles museum in London because there's not really one.
There is one, but it's next to the Sherlock Holmes Museum on Baker Street.
It's not a museum. It's just a shop.
It's just a shop, yeah.
Yeah.
And there's not really a museum to the Beatles.
No.
I mean, obviously you'd think, why would you put it in London? It's like the Beatles spent a significant part of their career in London.
Yeah.
It's like they were in London for most of it. I mean, Liverpool was where they were born and raised and everything, but London is where they worked and recorded all of the music. I mean, you could say Abbey Road is a museum to the Beatles, but it's not, it's not like specific. It's like there's been a ton of artists that have gone through those doors, past and present. And it's like they just happen to be the most famous because they walked across the Abbey Road. Oh, and Abbey Road thing, that's grade 2.
Abbey Road crossing.
Yeah, the Abbey
Road thing.
Pelican Cross. Yeah, I can't remember what you call it. Crosswalk. Yeah, I mean, that's why I'm like thing, because it's like Pelican Crossing or Crosswalk.
Yeah.
That's also part of the the grade 2 listing.
Pelican crossing.
That's what
Zebra crossing.
Zebra crossing, yeah, they call it
Pelican, zebra, whatever. Same thing.
Well, we do call it both.
Anyway.
They're interchangeable.
Anyway, we wanted to get the building. We wanted to turn it into a Beatles museum. Have
We
a little
wanted Erica
recording space.
Down in the studio.
Hire some people to do rooftop concerts every once in a while. You know,
Well, you could have done the rooftop concerts.
It was going to be absolutely perfect. But no, Abercrombie.
No, Savile Row would have gone mental. If we'd done rooftop concerts, they would have gone mental.
It would not have infringed on their business in the way that Abercrombie. Well, has Abercrombie really infringed on their business?
Not really, no.
No, I wouldn't think so.
I mean, I don't think, yeah.
But anyway, I think part of the thing, once Abercrombie got a hold of the building, then they were going, okay, well, you can't make any changes.
Well, they can't make any changes to the facade of it anyway.
Yeah, because they did. They knocked through, I think, because they own that whole corner around the corner as well.
They knocked through to it.
Have you seen the pictures of the? Yeah, it's like almost a whole like kind of block going around the corner direction. Well, it's a huge store. Because
people go in there now just because it's like, oh, this is where they
that's cool, because you couldn't used to go in there. You could only see it from the outside.
Yeah. And I mean, you can't go up to the roof, I don't think, but I think they've got plaques in there now, you know, like little gold brass plaques.
Sort of
the Beatles owned this building, or they worked here, you know. John Lennon and George Harrison worked here.
I think I've heard somewhere they sell like Abercrombie and Fitch brand Beatles.
Yes. They've got like a little Beatles section in there.
Yeah.
You know, but it's like, that's tacky. It's like, it's totally not what we were gonna do. You were just gonna sell Beatles approved merchandise.
But anyway, yeah.
Yeah, I think I mean that's basically what a listed building is.
But that's interesting because, I definitely thought that there was a preservation order. Like, I thought you could not make changes to listed buildings at all.
It's kind of, I mean, you can't without permission. Yeah. And you rarely get the permission.
Right.
Is what it boils down to at the end of the day, you know? Yeah. But yes, I think that's about it for this topic, yeah. That's about it for this topic, yeah, because I mean, well,
I just want to do kind of a little PSA.
Oh.
Regarding the beginning of this podcast, where we sort of were making fun of scripted shows, people who do scripted
podcasts. People
not making
script
fun.
Ours.
We make notes.
We make notes and we refer to them and we just kind of read out passages sometimes.
I mean, you can definitely not call what we do a script.
But there are scripted people out there.
Yeah, and I don't want to say that we were making fun of them, but I just want to make clear or sort of invite you guys to give us your feedback on the way we podcast. I know we're not the most professional podcast. Like, obviously, you guys.
One day we will be, though. One day we'll be so professional.
You guys are not.
You'll turn off.
You guys are not tuning in to like get NPR style broadcasts from us.
This is Terry Gross from NPR. This is fresh air.
The whole point of our show is just a chat. You know, we want to chat with you guys.
Yeah, we want to chat, and we want, if you're listening in, you can be like, blah, 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 you can say something a bit, we unfortunately can't hear you. we were going to have guests on here.
We may not respond, but...
we're going to have guests on at some point, I think.
Maybe, yeah, it's a bit...
We used to have guests on our old podcast.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean... Nowadays, we just kind of have the time to just sit down and talk, and then I'll edit, and then,
I mean, yeah.
Get it out to you,
But the whole point of this is just for us to have a chat. We just want to chat about things that we would normally chat about. We just had one of our followers on Instagram was messaging with us back and forth, and she was just saying, I like how you guys, it's the perfect length for like a lunch break or
30 minutes, yeah, because we used to do an hour. But that we had music in our old podcast too.
Which we can't really do.
We can't really do now because, copyright.
But let us know, do you guys enjoy the sort of loose format that we have here where we just chat, we have some notes, and we kind of... I know sometimes it's a bit like, for me personally, and this is getting a little bit personal, but for me personally, I feel a little bit like, oh, maybe we should have explained that clearer, or maybe we should have like really like,
yes,
we didn't really flow from one subject to the next like really smoothly, and maybe we should have really scripted that out a bit more.
Probably does some people's heads in, I guess, because I try to keep it on topic, but then you start talking about something else and it just like, oh, it leads naturally into that, or I start talking about something else.
Yeah.
And it leads naturally and we just forget about everything. We just go way off script.
I mean, well, like just now, obviously we had not planned to do any of this bit of...
yeah, and that's your fault because you started this all up.
But I genuinely want to know. I mean, obviously... we want to talk about things that you guys are interested in, but we also want to talk in a way that you guys want to hear us. You know, do you prefer it to be more scripted? Like, would you like us to say, well, Dominic, tell me now about listed buildings. And he says, Erica, it is not currently known how many listed buildings there are in the UK. You know, it's just like...
the total number is also difficult to monitor because one entry will often cover a number of different buildings. For me,
that feels a bit stiff. It feels a bit unnatural, and I don't know that I could pull it off, but if that's what you guys would prefer... I think
if we spoke very softly and just like...
more slowly.
Slowly. And
I know
we go to sleep. You go to sleep, and you're on your lunch break.
And this is not this is not an ASMR kind of... you know, we're not here for that. That's a whole different thing. I don't know. I just wanted to put it out there and let you guys tell us what you want. I prefer the more loose format, even though it can get a bit sloppy. I think we pull it together nicely, though. We don't completely go off topic. We don't, you know, like we're not talking about oranges or apples or something like that. They're just going, like. We start talking about dinosaurs. Yeah.
That's our next podcast topic, actually. Dinosaurs. And where were they in the UK?
So let us know. We like to hear from you anyway.
Yes.
Send us a message and let's talk.
Let us know.
Let's chat.
Give us some feedback.
Thank you so much, as always, for listening. We really appreciate you tuning in and supporting our podcast. Without you guys, we wouldn't make these podcasts. So, yeah. We appreciate that.
We probably would. And,
well, we'd be sitting around talking like this anyway, whether you'd be recording or not, I'm not sure, but... Thanks. Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot, everybody. We'll see you next time. Talk to you next time.
Bye-bye.
Bye.